What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here to talk about Oregon versus UCLA. I'm Ducks Digest publisher Max Torres, joined by Ducks Digest reporter Dylan Rubenking. We are going to talk about kind of just some final thoughts as the Ducks get ready to take on the Bruins in one of the top Pac-12 matchup of the week. Dylan, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. Finally, don't have to complain about my lighting or anything like that. It's a really exciting game. Haven't been this excited since the Ohio State game, so really excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is really big. Bruins come in at 5-2, 3-1 in the Pac-12. Ducks coming in at 5-1 5-1 because they had the bye week. So there's a lot on the line here. As far as just looking at the Pac-12 picture, what's gonna maybe come from this game. I think what I'm really excited about with this one is people are kind of wondering. They don't really know what team's gonna show up. Are we gonna see the Ohio State product, or are we going to see maybe more of what we saw against Stanford and Arizona? And I kind of think I'm more inclined to think the latter, just because they haven't played very consistently. But that's why we got to play the game and see what ultimately shakes out here. I think a good spot to start here. We'll keep an eye on the comments section to see if anybody has any questions. So if you guys are here and you want to, throw a question our way, we'd be happy to tackle it. But in the meantime, I think a good place to start here is talking about the quarterbacks and kind of what's going on there. So what do you see they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's two veteran quarterbacks who are somewhat unproven that have a lot of doubters. I think it's going to be a showcase for them to kind of, put a stamp on their career, get a signature win. I know Anthony Brown beat Ohio State, but it wasn't necessarily because of his flashy performance or anything like that. I think DTR has played very well. I think his completion percentage is a little deceiving because a lot of times he has to throw the ball away or, guys make drops and stuff like that. But I think both quarterbacks, statistically, they look like they've played really well. But I think both fan bases and a lot of the country are expecting a lot more. I don't know if this is going to be a passing shootout. Both quarterbacks, going for 300 yards, kind of a Baker Mayfield Mahomes thing. I wouldn't expect that. But I do think it's going to be a really fun battle to see, whose quarterback can make the plays down the line, because they both have played really well when the game is on the line, especially Anthony Brown. But consistency is going to be the big thing for him. Can he do what he does in the fourth quarter in the first three quarters as well?
I'm going to be looking for that too, because, I wrote about this in my prediction, a little bit. You guys can look at that. We have our roundtable predictions on Ducks Digest, just about, the passing attack obviously hasn't been what they want it to be. And, statistically, Brown had a great game against Cal, but, in the times when it doesn't look that great, he's kind of making the case for himself by coming up with these clutch plays like you were talking about, Dylan. Had that late touchdown against Cal, so that was obviously pretty big. But I don't know, because it's you. People talk about wanting a quarterback change, but it's so hard to make that when you're winning. And then they lose to Stanford, they get a bye week, and what looked like a soft opponent against Cal, or a fairly easy win, and they still rolled out with Brown. So I think that winning kind of complicates the quarterback situation. But man, DTR is going to be fun to watch. Like I've never seen him play in person. I was at the game last year, and he kind of got scratched last minute. But Chase Griffin put on quite a show. So I think that this has all the makings to be a really cool quarterback battle to watch.
Yeah, I mean, DTR has played against Oregon before. That was back in 2018, but he was a much different quarterback, had a much different team around him. I think he was like 9 of 23, only had like 130 something yards, touchdown and a pick. So, and I think Oregon won that game by 21. So it's definitely going to be, Oregon's kind of been at the top of the Pac-12 since he's been at UCLA, and Chip Kelly's been there, during that tenure. So I definitely think a win over Oregon is, kind of like an ACC team beating Clemson. It's kind of like, it kind of puts you closer to the top, kind of puts you further along in your program track record. And I think DTR is definitely looking to do that in his fourth year. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, he's really electric. He has so many weapons around him. I mean, Dulcich, Phillips, Casimir Allen, Cam Brown, the running backs. I mean, this is just a loaded offense. So he's definitely set up for success at UCLA. And I think if this is the time to potentially face Oregon twice and beat them twice, this is definitely the year.
Yeah. So you're talking about if they go to the Pac-12 championship and meet up again there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I mean the weapons that he has to pick apart the Oregon defense is something that's really intriguing. Look at Dulcich. He's just been on a mission this year, and I think that the young linebackers that Oregon kind of has on this defense, clearly there's some talent there. Jeff Bostic got his first start last week against Cal, so I think he'll be able to kind of help out a little bit as far as the coverage goes. Noah Sewell is, phenomenal, but I think the one knock, if you want to call it that, or one area for improvement for him in particular is coverage, because he's so athletic. But can you take the time to read see what you're getting from a guy like DTR, who he's probably going to have to spy quite a bit because he's so fast, right? So I think seeing how the linebackers come to play and match up against the UCLA offense is going to be another talking point that I'm really going to be keen in on. But you talk about maybe matching up again in the Pac-12 championship. I find that it's very interesting that all of Oregon's toughest games this year are on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about that Utah game, at the beginning of the year, didn't really look like it was going to be super tough. And now with the way that they're playing, that's definitely going to be a close game to keep an eye on. But this UCLA game, I feel like most people have had this game circled for the entire year, because UCLA has been, they returned pretty much all of their starters, and they've really looked the part so far, minus a couple, down games as well. But yeah, it's going to be a shootout. I can't wait to see if Oregon can put on a repeat performance from the last road game against Ohio State.
All right, so that was kind of what we wanted to just start with here. I sent out a tweet, as did Dylan, asking for questions. So just a reminder, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section or tweet at us. We'll try to get it in the show if we can, in the stream. But one of the questions that we got was from Penny on Twitter, and she was asking, why is game day on the UCLA campus instead of at the Rose Bowl? Not supportive of both teams. Dylan, you want me to take this, or do you want to try to take a stab at it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think we know, a specific reason, I would say, as to why, they were having game day on the UCLA campus. But I feel like off the top, I would assume that it's just because UCLA is having a great year is what I would go with. And because it hasn't been to Westwood in quite some time. So I think that I can see the point of, it's not supporting both teams by being not at the Rose Bowl, but I don't know. It's not something that strikes me as like unfair, for example. I mean, the game's in UCLA. It's it's going to be a home atmosphere, and I think that there's going to be excitement around that. So I don't really know why, but I think that it definitely bodes well for UCLA to get the game day location and to have that buzz around campus.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to the Rose Bowl as well, Max, and I have too. And I feel like one place that they usually set up for the Rose Bowl game, which isn't necessarily for game day, is like with the stadium and the backdrop. I don't think there's as much room for fans in the whole game day setup there as you might think there is, because it's such, it's set up on kind of a high hill, and there's the golf course, and I'm not really sure it's super set up for that. Maybe it is on the other side, but yeah, like you said, UCLA is having a great year. I think they earned having this game day experience be there. I don't think that Oregon fans are going to be kind of turned off by the fact that it's on campus and that it's kind of far away from the stadium, because it is kind of far. But I think they're still going to show out. I think this is going to be, it's not going to be dominated by UCLA fans, I don't think, because,
those Oregon fans travel.
They travel well. And you look at some of those games like the LSU game, right? LSU fans showed out from Baton Rouge. There were a ton of them there, and they were making noise. And Oregon fans always show out when they play it at the Rose Bowl. So I kind of expect there to be a lot of Oregon fans, regardless of where game day was going to be.
Yeah, we're gonna be seeing plenty of green and yellow. I don't think fans should be worried about any kind of unfair advantage there. But game day is fun, man. The last game day that I went to was I think it was Stanford in 2018. So the Ducks didn't get the win on that in that game, but that was the last time that game day was in Eugene. So that was pretty fun. And it's always great to have one of your games on the schedule be a game day selection. So that's kind of what we wanted to say on that part. One of the other, I don't even know if it was necessarily a question, but it was a cool, little response comment to one of the stories that we wrote recently. Dylan, you wrote the UCLA defensive players to watch in this game. Definitely a lot of great players on that side of the ball for UCLA as well. But we had Shoe Duck on Twitter, and he was saying, he or she was saying, conversely, we have an offense that has a good rushing attack, but a passing attack that leaves a lot to be desired in reference to Oregon. Strength versus strength and weakness versus weakness could spell an interesting game. So strength versus strength, just to kind of put some context here, the rushing attack for Oregon and the UCLA run defense. And then for Oregon, their passing attack hasn't been too great, but UCLA has the worst passing defense in the Pac-12 statistically speaking.
Yeah, this is a UCLA defense is kind of, they're really, really good on one side and really, really bad on the other. They're top 10 in the country in rush defense, and they're bottom 10 in pass defense. So, and then you look at Oregon, they're a phenomenal running team. You have Travis Dye, who, is on pace to go for 1,000 yards this year, and you have a lot of other guys in the mix. And then you talk about, Oregon's passing offense. Nobody has more than 200 yards receiving, I think. And I'm pretty sure they're one of the very few teams in the country that don't have anybody that's had 100 yards receiving this year. So I think that Anthony Brown's going to have to throw the ball downfield. And the thing is, somebody mentioned that, UCLA hasn't played a lot of teams that run the ball super efficiently. I think Arizona State was really the only one that kind of exposed them, if you want to call it exposed them. So I kind of get that, but at the same time, if you're top 10 in the country and you're playing Pac-12 teams, I still think that's impressive. But at the same time, Anthony Brown, I think, is going to have to expose that weakness, that secondary. And they still have guys that can make plays. I mean, Quantrez Knight and Quentin Lake are two guys that are super talented. They can bat plays. They play pretty solid man coverage. And Oregon has too much talent at the receiver and tight end position to not try to get them, try to keep inflating those numbers for UCLA toward the wrong direction. So I think Anthony Brown's going to have kind of a performance that Tyler Shuck had last year. He had like 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. I think that's the kind of performance that I think would kind of sell fans on the idea that Anthony Brown could be the guy for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like he's going to be the guy the rest of the year as long as they keep winning, right? I think that kind of just goes to play into what is at stake here. If Oregon were to lose this game, I think it could maybe shake things up because it would totally change the Pac-12 picture, and then I think it would knock them out of the playoffs, almost completely. But we'll have to see what happens with the rest of the season. It's a chaotic year, man. I mean, crazy upsets are happening what feels like every weekend. But in reference to what we were talking about with Brown, I wrote my prediction. If I'm the UCLA defense, I'm crowding that box and I'm saying, Anthony Brown, you got to beat us with your arm. And he looked like he was, pretty surgical against Ohio State. And I feel like he still didn't do anything that crazy. Like, I mean, there weren't that many throws where I was like, wow, that guy's a dude. He's making some crazy throws. The offense was operating. He didn't turn the ball over. He got the ball into the hands of those capable playmakers. Devin Williams, if we're talking about playmakers, he's the kind of the big buzz for this Oregon offense heading into this game. He's looking like he's putting it together more consistently here. We've seen him flash in a couple games. But Mario has said earlier this week that he's, taking more accountability and he's really been performing well in practice. So if you can get the ball in his hands some more, he's, one of the most, if not the most gifted receiver on this team. It's just a matter of consistency. And Johnny Johnson, he's doing really well. He had that layout grab. Jalen Red's getting involved with reverses, and that dude can block. Like, if we're going to talk about Jalen Red, I mean, that guy can seriously lay some blocks, even though he's not the biggest body.
Yeah, I was watching the coaches show on the Oregon Sports Network, and they were showing a clip of him talking about when he blocks, he likes to put his face in a dude's face. And obviously, like you said, he's not the biggest guy, and he doesn't believe that. He's got the heart of a warrior. He's gonna block you it doesn't matter. He could go up against Myles Garrett and still think that he can win that battle. So a lot of impressive receivers. I think Devin Williams is going to be the key factor because he had such a great game against UCLA last year. And he's really picking up his stride this year. I mean, against Cal, he had a really solid game overall. So, and it was really interesting coming into the year because he wasn't super high on the depth chart. And a lot of people were really confused by that because of, how much of a big playmaker he was last year. I think he was like top 3 in the Pac-12 in yards per catch. So I was really surprised that he was kind of buried back there. Now I know they have a lot of young talent with Franklin and Dante Thornton too, but those guys really haven't gotten a lot of touches. So I expect Devin Williams to kind of be that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 this week against a pretty a struggling UCLA secondary. But they have some film on him from last year and now for this year. So I feel like he's going to be a big focal point for the UCLA defense to key in on.
Looks like we got a question here in the chat from Chunky Monkey. Thanks for asking a question. Always want to get more people throwing those our way. Question is, who's to blame for the vanilla/predictable offense, lack of a deep threat? Is it systematic or is it a limit at the QB position? Or am I off base here? At first glance, I don't think that it's a systematic issue. At least with regards to the deep ball, because every game that I've either gone to or watched, I feel like at some point or other, we're seeing people running downfield. They're running open, Devin Williams in particular. And it's just, I feel like it's not to put a ton of blame, but to answer the question, I feel like Brown he's being put in the position to take those shots, but he's just been playing it very safe, taking those underneath routes, taking the short routes. But he did, to his credit, he did have that nice, throw to Jalen Redd in the end zone last week. But I think it kind of comes down to that. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think, when you watch Anthony Brown play, there's a lot of plays where you can tell that he's trying to make reads down the field. He's going through, his progressions each play. Now, sometimes he misses stuff. Like Micah Pittman was running open. Devin Williams was running open against Cal, and he missed him. There are times where he's under pressure and has to get it out quickly, which I think against UCLA, he's really going to have to do that. But yeah, I think, he's a little more comfortable throwing short. Some of those short crossers and, little hitch routes. I think that, sometimes he maybe has to bet on himself to make a throw down the field. I think he's a little too hesitant sometimes. And that Jalen Redd throw, like you said, honestly might have been his best throw this year. I mean, that was a very tight window in a big moment. So I think we need to see more of that. But to answer the question, I'm not 100% sure it's completely schematic either. Joe Moorhead's talked about, that's a big part of our offense. We want the downfield action. We want that explosive, play ratio that they've been talking about. And I think against Cal, you saw that a bit more, but I think that needs to be a big focus against the UCLA secondary. It's given close to 300 yards a game.
Yeah, we have Brown 244 yards through the air against Cal. So, that was probably, I think that was his season high, if I'm remembering that correctly. But Chunky Monkey also said here, talking about how Herbert wasn't used to his full potential. And yeah, that was, if you're a Duck fan, that's just got to be frustrating to see, right? Because, he's having such a good year in the NFL now, won Rookie of the Year last year. And it kind of just makes you wonder, well, why it kind of seemed as if he was playing with training wheels, right? I think of, how Travis Dye, heading into this season, one of the storylines was they're taking the training wheels off of him. And I feel like that kind of segues into one of the other things that we wanted to touch on. Definitely feel free to throw a comment or a question at us, but the running back rotation. I mean, if those training wheels were on before, I don't think they were, but they're really coming off now. He was the offense against Cal, 19 carries out of the backfield, I believe it was, for 145 yards on the ground, over 7 yards a carry. And then he was also the team's leading receiver. So, I mean, his versatility is, it's on full display every week. But I'm really looking at this game, hoping to get a little bit of a clearer picture at what that running back rotation looks like with that trio of freshmen that they just look like they're ready to go and very capable.
Yeah, and I have full faith in Travis Dye to, kind of exploit, some holes in that UCLA defensive front. But Mario Cristobal has talked about it all week long, that this UCLA defense is as physical as you're going to see, especially the front seven. The linebackers always play close to the line of scrimmage, and they can absolutely fly when they get off the ball. The defensive linemen are very physical, hard to move. Daytona Jackson is a big body up front. So if Travis Dye is struggling like he did last year against UCLA, I really want to see what Byron Cardwell and Seven McGee and Trey Benson, if he's healthy, what they can do. And I think Travis Dye does too. He was asked about them and what does he want to see out of them? And he said, just go. I just want to see them just go and be themselves. And I think a lot of Oregon fans are waiting to see that too. Byron Cardwell looked really good on that one drive against Cal, had a couple really nice runs. One of them went for 12 where he basically juked a dude out of his shoes and made a really nice cut up the field. So, and he was really good in pass protection too. So I think this is the game. If Travis Dye is struggling, kind of see what else you have. I don't think it's one of those things where you have to try to force it to work. Obviously you want to establish the run game, but if it's not there, it's not there. So maybe try and see what the other guys can do because there's not a lot of film on him. But I think Travis Dye is, I would expect him to be who he's been all season long and get close to that 6-7 yards a touch and maybe close to 100 yards. But I just don't think they should try to force it with him if it's not working because chances are with UCLA's defensive front, it might not.
To be fair, I mean, the Oregon offensive line is looking pretty strong, and Alex Forsythe is coming back. At least that's what we're being told right now heading into this week. He obviously didn't play against Stanford, and then we were told that he was looking good to go, and the staff thought he was looking good to go before that game against Cal, and then Ryan Walk had to take over the snapping duties when Forsythe missed. So that's another thing we're going to have to keep our eye on is what's this offensive line rotation looking like, or are they going to keep rotating? Considering that they didn't last week and it worked out to their benefit. So it makes me wonder kind of how we've been asking, does it make sense to just keep the same guys in there for consistency's sake? Or, I don't really see the benefit of rotating at this point. I mean, I feel like they've proven that they have that versatility and that guys are ready to go whenever needed, but Salah's been playing really well. Stephen Jones has been playing really well. So that those guys are some people to keep an eye on in this one. And, I think that was what I wanted to say there. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say about the O-line or if you wanted to maybe move on to one of our other topics that we had here.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching, we were watching pretty closely with the Cal game. Allie is a big proponent of the offensive line. She's always keeping an eye on what they're doing up front. And, we kept noticing throughout the game that, like, wow, they're not switching anybody when they usually would against like Stanford and Arizona. They were switching, Jackson Powers Johnson and Dawson Jaramello. And to their credit, they played well. And Jackson Powers Johnson has been one of the more versatile guys up front. But at the same time, they just don't have the experience that, those 5-6 guys that have been starting, including last year, have. And going forward, when every game is super important and you're trying to get to that Pac-12 title game, you're trying to get to a college football playoff, if that window is still open, I think you want the guys that you can bet on to get the job done each and every snap. Now, of course, if something happens, like with Forsythe, I mean, they have Ryan Walk in there, but if something else was to happen, then they have guys that, they feel comfortable that can fill in, and they have. Jaramello did a really good job against Ohio State, and Powers Johnson's been in and out all year. I just think that they should stick with their 5-6 man rotation with Walk kind of in and out of there. He's shown that he can be, a guy at any position, really, kind of a Calvin Throckmorton kind of guy. So I think if they want to, talk about the integrity of what they're doing, like what Mario Cristobal was saying, I think they should stick to that 5-6 man rotation like they did last year.
Totally agree on all the points about the O-line, but we can't have the whole live stream be about the offense. What about this defense, man? I mean, Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to get his first. It's weird. It's the 7th game of the year, I believe. So, yeah, 7th game of the year for Oregon. And this is the first time he's going to be playing a full game. Obviously got hurt early on, wasn't able to go against Ohio State, and then, was battling injury for a while, recovering from injury. And then, we saw him in that half against Cal. My God, he was just playing out of his mind. And, you get to see him maybe go up against a guy who's looking like a high draft pick in Sean Ryan. And, he went up against Elijah Vera Tucker, who was a pretty good draft pick last year, and he just took care of business. And, you talk about the lights being bright for this one. It's a big game. KT he seems like he just plays stronger when the lights are brightest, which makes you, wish that he could have played in that Ohio State game, but I think it really bodes well for this week to have him for a full game, especially with Braden Swinson back, DJ Johnson getting in the rotation, and it looks like a lot of things are falling into place for this to be a good game for the defense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about, the consistency with Kayvon. Sometimes during the regular season, there are times where, his production's pretty limited. He doesn't get a lot of sacks, a lot of big tackle numbers. And then they talk about like Pac-12 championship Kayvon. Like it's kind of like some game 6 Klay Thompson kind of thing. I think that Kayvon in that game against Cal completely flipped the offensive game plan for Cal because of how do I put this? How he was absolutely obliterating that left tackle that entire second half. I've never seen now. To be fair, I was at the Pac-12 championship game where he was abusing Elijah Vera Tucker in that offensive line. I think that Cal game, he was even more dominant than that. 11, I think it was 11 pressures on 22 pass rush snaps. That's insane, in my opinion. I didn't even know that a pass rush rate like that could exist. And I think UCLA is going to be a tougher battle. Sean Ryan is, in my opinion, I think he's good enough to be a first-round pick, but Kayvon has shown that he can do some damage against guys that go in the first round. So, and I wrote about this in my players to watch that, I think you saw it with Elijah Vera Tucker when he got drafted. You were just seeing like, he's really good, but at the same time, a guy like Kayvon did all of this against him, and they showed it in the draft in April. Mel Kiper was kind of harping on him about that. I think if, Sean Ryan dominates Kayvon or Kayvon dominates Sean Ryan, you're going to see it too, because both those guys could easily be first-round guys.
The whole story with Kayvon, man, it's just you watch his breakout game against Utah his freshman year, making plays on special teams and as a pass rusher. You just can't help but get excited. And I think that with him forcing that fumble against Fresno State, that was obviously big for the Ducks. They were just turning the ball over there, forcing turnovers left and right, it felt like, with all those fumbles. It kind of segues into, one of the last points I wanted to talk about here is the turnover battle. Ducks had the highest turnover margin, in the country for some time now. And then you lose Bennett Williams, and they haven't forced a turnover in 2 games now. And you figure that every drive is going to be crucial in this one. It could be a shootout, or it could be a defensive grind out game. I think I have a bit more confidence in Oregon's defense right now than the offense, especially because they're getting healthier. So I don't know. Do you think this could be a game where whoever wins the turnover battle wins the game? Or am I maybe overstating the importance of that, and we just kind of have to, maybe there won't be any turnovers? I don't know.
I think against this offense, you definitely have to get some turnovers. You have to get your hands on some footballs. You have to punch the ball out. I think everything that you can do against this offense is definitely going to help. Last year it helped a lot. Every little thing helped in that Ducks win last year, because they only won by, the skin of their fingers. So, and they forced a lot of turnovers. You talk about like Jordan Happel's pick 6, that kind of was a big momentum shift at the end of the first half there. I think they're going to need something similar to that against DTR. And just, with guys like Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown, the guys that can just absolutely abuse offensive line, defenses, I think that they're really going to need to force some turnovers and get the ball in the hands of their offense. And time of possession is another big thing too, because you talk about Cal. I mean, they had some really long drives, especially at the end of the game. I think the defense needs to get off the field quicker. I'm not talking about like a 3 and out every drive. That's just not, realistic. But at the same time, you don't want to see them on the field for 13, 15, 18 plays, when the game is on the line. You want to get the ball back in the hands of your offense, especially when they play as well as they do in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that was one of the other things that I touched about in my prediction. This UCLA offense has proven that they can put together those long drives and have those explosive plays. And you always hear about defense wins championships, but if you look at these recent natties, these offenses are just popping off, and it's, I'm going to outscore you. Can you keep up with me? And then that's kind of the way that we're seeing the college football landscape kind of go now. And even though the Oregon offense is, loaded with a lot of big guys, big names, a lot of talent, we just haven't really seen it. I as far as the explosive plays go. I think about the Jalen Red touchdown against Arizona, where it looked like they were off to an amazing start and then they stalled. And I feel like a lot of Anthony Brown's big plays this year have come on the ground, improvising. And I feel like I'd be a lot more confident if I was maybe seeing some of those on, scripted plays, play action, some deep shots or going over the middle, taking some risks. That was one of the biggest things I was surprised about with Brown this year, is because I saw him in Arizona at the Fiesta Bowl. And when he came in, that QB situation was just a mess. But when he came in, he looked like he was taking risks and he, was confident in what he was doing. And I just feel like I haven't really seen that this year. And it just makes the whole quarterback situation a little bit more puzzling for me. But I think that this game could go a long way for him if he has a strong performance, just, silencing the critics.
Yeah, you talk about the Pac-12 championship game too. I mean, they threw him in there after not playing a single snap the whole year. That was bizarre to see him warm up and then come on the field. That was I kind of wish there were Oregon fans there just to hear the kind of buzz that that would have created. But yeah, I mean, that last year you talked about it, the offense kind of sparked a little bit after it was struggling against Cal and against Oregon State the 2 games before that. I think he really kind of lit a fire under that offense, and you haven't really seen that this year. I don't think a lot of people expected him to be, Justin Herbert chucking the ball down the field or Marcus Mariota. You can't really have expectations like that. And Oregon fans have been spoiled, obviously for a few years now, but Anthony Brown is just not those guys, but he has to play to a level like that. I think if they're to get to the college football playoff, I think the chances are still there, but I think the offense just needs to really pick it up and kind of start dominating some people. I mean, offense, the run game, I think, has been borderline dominant for a lot of games. The offensive line's done its job, but passing attack just needs to be a lot better, especially when you're going up against an offense that can score in a blink.
So many people have talked about, the Oregon offense, not even the Oregon offense, I should say, but Oregon as a whole playing down to their opponents. And I think we've seen that more at home this year than on the road. I feel like when we asked Mario Cristobal about like his approach to, big games or on the road, it's hard to get anything out of him because he's, saying it's, 1-0 mentality. It's just another game. We don't want to make it anything more than it is, which I totally understand and respect. But shoot, I can't remember exactly where I was going with that. Give me a second here, a little brain fart. But okay, I know. So big road game this year against Ohio State. They played up to their opponent. So I think, and then Stanford, it was kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say Stanford was a bad team. Like that's always going to be a good game, right? David Shaw gets his guys coached up and they play jump ball like they always have. But can we get the consistency from that offense from Brown? He's trying to put that together for all 4 quarters, and I think that's going to go a long way in determining how this ultimately shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense, has really only had maybe 2 good starts. I think the Ohio State one, I think it was scoreless in the first quarter, and then that second quarter they took off. Arizona, they took off in the first quarter, and then other than that, it just takes a while. So I really think that they need to get like very early scores. And then I feel like the defense, like you said, I have more trust in the defense as well. I think if they get a couple quick scores, maybe get up 10-zip, 14-zip, I have trust in the defense to be able to keep a lead. I think a couple years ago, and even last year, I don't know if I would have been able to say that. I think that the way that the defense is playing, despite all the injuries they've had, I have faith in the fact that they could probably keep at least a 1-possession lead. I think UCLA, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I think if Oregon's offense can stay consistent, maybe get, 7-10 points each quarter, and then maybe some in the fourth quarter too, I think that they're going to set themselves up. But it has to come from the pass and the rush, not just the rush. Because you talk about that Stanford game, they ran the ball a lot in that game. And Jim Mastro was the guy calling the plays for the most part. And that was evident. They ran it like 55 times to 25, 26 throws. I think it has to be more of a mixed bag. And I think Anthony Brown has to be a better decision maker, have more trust in his arm, more trust in his receivers, and more trust in his eyes too. That's kind of a big thing.
Yeah, having Moorhead's going to be coaching in this one. For people who didn't know, I feel like that came out a little bit ago, but he's going to be traveling for this game, and he'll be available to coach. I think that'll be good. It's going to be a battle of two great offensive minds. That's another kind of story within the game here. And with Chip Kelly, and he has his quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is playing great this year. It sets the stage for this one to be a really entertaining game. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about special teams, because I think Micah Pittman's been a big bright spot in the return game. We haven't really seen too many of those explosive plays on special teams. Some of that situational, and then some of that's execution. Laying your blocks, making sure you're in the right spot at the right time. But then we also have Camden Lewis, who's been really good. So I think, even though we're, Dylan, you and I kind of feel like we're on the same page as far as confidence in the offense, not being where we would like it to be, I think that, maybe there's a couple drives where they can't finish the drive, which you'd like to see, but Camden Lewis can still get you some points here. And if it's kind of a grinded out game, I wonder if we'll see some risks with play calling, maybe going for it on fourth down, or maybe we'll see Camden come in and take care of business. So I think that this game is one where we could see special teams play a role, especially if it ends up being, whether it ends up being a shootout or, a grind them out defensive battle game. I think that can set the stage as well.
Yeah, Camden Lewis has been automatic. He's been a machine this year, which you talk about a couple of years ago, he was really, really struggling. A lot of people were calling for his job, and late last year, Henry Kettleman came in and he didn't miss a kick. And now you go Camden Lewis this year, he hasn't missed a kick. So I think it's safe to say that for once in quite a long time, Oregon has a really reliable kicker right now. Even when they were really good, they didn't have that for the most part. So I think if it comes down to it and they get around like the 30-yard line and the drive stalls, and it's like a 4th and 5, 4th and 6, and they don't want to, give the ball back to UCLA right away without a score, I think that's an easy decision in my opinion. But like you said, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, that gets really interesting given how physical UCLA's defense is and how many times that they've made stops like that this year. I think that UW game, I think, they stopped UW a couple of times on stuff like that. So I would be kind of afraid on a 4th and 1. At the same time, you give the ball to Travis Dye. I mean, good things are going to happen, and I'd have faith in him. But you see sometimes where it's 3rd and short, 4th and short, and Anthony Brown kind of carries it and goes, into the backs of 3 different offensive linemen in one pile. So I'd like to see kind of more creativity when it comes to 4th and short, maybe. Now, when it comes to like the fourth quarter, you don't want to play around too much. Something straight up the middle would probably work, but UCLA's defense, man, that's kind of scary to think about trying to bulldoze through them on 4th and short.
Very random thing that I just kind of thought of that might be fun to throw out here. If you're Oregon and you win the toss tomorrow on Saturday, are you taking the ball and just trying to take your best shot at them and show we're not messing around, or do you maybe take the more conservative approach and defer? Because I feel like naturally I would maybe want to defer to the second half just to kind of play it safe and in case they're trailing going into the half, at least get the ball back. But if they get the rock and they just take it and score, I feel like that's a great opportunity to throw the first punch.
Taking a page out of Chip Kelly's book too. That would be a really interesting storyline there. I mean, we've seen it sometimes, especially the Stanford game, right? They deferred and they had the final possession a couple times and at the end of the second half didn't score, got it back in the second half, didn't score. So it's not a guarantee that the offense is going to score if they get the ball back in the second half. But I feel like if you get on there first and you're being aggressive in the way that you coach the game against a team that's also very aggressive in the way they coach their team, I'd say go for it. I think it's kind of, can I say ballsy? It's a little ballsy, but I honestly would love that against Chip Kelly and, the way that he kind of does things his own way, a little bit different. I think that would be a huge move.
So you're saying if you win the toss, you're taking the ball?
Go for it. Yeah. Why not? I'd go for it against the UCLA in a game like that. I'd go for it.
All right, we got a comment here. Moorhead has to scheme around AB's deficiencies. Yeah, that's from Sabin Rob. Thanks for the comment there. Hopefully, I'm saying the name right. Apologies if I'm not. Definitely want to get more audience interaction. Give you guys access to us, help you guide the show. It is for the Oregon fans that tune in and support the site. That's a great point. Realize that he is a guy that likes to run when the play breaks down. Try to put him in those comfortable situations. I think that's why it's just more important that they do pound the rock. Like you want to pound the rock because that's your strength, but you don't want to be so predictable to the point where it's like, okay, if they're not running it, we know what's coming. So, when you run the ball, people know how football works. You run the ball and you can have play action opportunities, RPO. The whole RPO has been very hit and miss. I feel like, we've seen some situations where there's the wrong read has been made, but then when he makes the right read, there's 10, 15 yards to be had there. What do you think about that as far as how Moorhead can help AB out in this one?
I saw a comment. I was reading, I think it was a YouTube video, and I was seeing a comment that maybe they should try to take another page out of Chip Kelly's book and try some spread offense, maybe some zone read stuff. Now, I know that's kind of probably shying away from what they've been doing, and they probably don't want to do that. But I do think some creativity and playing to the strengths of Anthony Brown is a good thing, because he's not necessarily known as like a wicked pocket passer or anything like that. He can throw on the run. He can get out of the pocket and, step up and make plays. But at the same time, when a play breaks down, like you said, sometimes he improvises and makes kind of too quick a decision. I do think that more runs up the middle is probably not the recipe for success. I'm going to say that probably the way that I should. And at the same time, the offensive line needs to do a little bit better job when they're blocking for him sometimes. And I think, it goes both ways. He needs to make a better read when he's got the ball in his hands. Offensive line should create holes the way that they have for Dye too. So, but yeah, I think against a defense that's so physical and can really explode into the backfield, you don't want, stuff like the RPOs where, you kind of fake the handoff and you got a dude in your face and you have to make a quick throw. That kind of scares me a little bit, just because UCLA has been able to do that and just kind of blow plays up and make the quarterback kind of panic. I have a feeling we might see that once or twice, but I think they just need to not necessarily call plays where he's running the ball all over the place. I don't think that's going to be the recipe for success. I just think that maybe some better throws to maybe get him warmed up a little bit, kind of make those short throws earlier in the game and then get him warmed up to, see how the secondary is faring out, see what the coverage is like and the protection, and see if he can take some shots down the field.
I know I want to see some shots down the field. We got another comment here. I think Herbert's issues were in large part due to the receivers. If you go back and watch after a bunch of drops, Herbert would take something off of his throws and get the yips. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It makes sense, right? It just plays into quarterback's confidence. It's a huge part of it. And, when you're looking at the quarterback situation, I feel like to a degree it's kind of hard to compare the two because Herbert's so physically gifted, but he didn't have the right play calling. And you look at Oregon's skill talent, it's improved a lot. That's not to say that there weren't good playmakers when Herbert was here, but the way that Oregon's recruited and kept bringing in really high level guys, you feel like all the pieces of the puzzle are there. You have all the great recruits. You have some proven veterans and like Johnny Johnson and Jalen Redd. Devin Williams is emerging some more. And then I feel like it's pretty safe to say everyone would agree that Joe Moorhead is an upgrade over Marcus Arroyo. So I think that things like that are kind of contributing to a little bit more of the frustration as far as what we've seen from the passing attack here so far this year.
Isn't it kind of crazy that this year, you don't really see any drops from this receiving core like you did with Herbert those couple of years, like 2018, 2019, there were a lot of drops. But now, like, the passing offense still isn't exactly to even that level statistically. I think that's kind of crazy to think about, that the receivers have been so short-handed, but yet, the offensive, I don't think it's had more than 250 passing yards in a game throughout the year. So, I agree to that it's a bit of Arroyo, and it's the fact that, the receivers weren't quite as reliable as they are now. I just think the fact that that they're super reliable and they're not going to drop the ball, maybe you should try to get them the ball down the field and have them make plays. I think that it goes into play calling and Anthony Brown as well. And I think making quicker throws, maybe we could see a different Anthony Brown if he makes quicker reads, because sometimes you kind of see him look all over the field before he kind of dumps it off. UCLA is going to make you make quick throws. So I think if Anthony Brown can kind of trust his eyes, trust his arm, maybe we could see a more explosive offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I think that's a good place to maybe wrap it here. Maybe we could each just say our one last part. This video is going to be up on the channel, so if you're watching it on replay, make sure to catch us in the next live stream. I'm going to try to get better about tweeting those out, putting it on Facebook, just letting you guys know when it's happening. But so much is on the line here. I feel like obviously with the Pac-12 picture, but another tough road test for Oregon. I think this game is going to show us, what this team really is. Because they only have one loss, but when you're a team that's so used to winning at a high level, people really tend to hone in on those losses. So I have my prediction on Ducks Digest at 28-24 UCLA 28-24 UCLA taking the win. I feel like I've kind of talked about that over this stream. I feel like UCLA's explosiveness is really going to help them, and the deficiencies in the passing game could be what proves to be the difference in this one. Give us some final thoughts from you, Dylan, before we hop out of here.
Yeah, I predicted Oregon to win. I believe it was 34-28. I just feel like with the way that Oregon's played, I think they're going to play up to UCLA. I think we're going to find some explosion out of the offense, out of the passing attack. And I think Dye is going to have a good performance. And I think the defense is going to do what it's been doing all year and making big stops. I think they got a couple turnovers. Overall, I think it's a really solid day. So I do think that they're going to pull away for the win. Maybe it's just for my own confidence level predicting that. But I do think that, with the way that they played against Ohio State, with everything on the line, like you said, I think they're going to come out and they're going to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, would be great to see an Oregon win. Dylan has some more confidence than me, it sounds like, at this point. I will be on the scene with another one of our reporters, Nick Batty, to give you guys all the latest updates and information. Dylan will be running the live update story for us. So make sure to tune in tomorrow to Ducks Digest so that you can catch all the latest information and updates. We'll have stories throughout the day, more preview stuff coming out for that one. As we're feeding into the excitement around this one, everyone wants to talk about it, and then we'll also have a podcast at some point following the game. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Follow Dylan and I on Twitter, mTOR Sports, DRK Sports News. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we will see you in the next video.